I think one of the big misconceptions with trail work and volunteering is that you're basically giving up a full weekend or your full Saturday just to kind of go out and get involved. And, that can involve an extensive hike in, um, obviously like manual labor, and then a long hike out. And it can be kind of daunting, I think, for people to kind of take that step. And the reality is that a lot of organizations have kind of addressed that and pivoted. And many groups have, after work, dig days and dig evenings, I guess I'd say, where you can just get out for a couple hours at the end of your day, and you can still make a meaningful impact.
I'm Meg Carney, an outdoor and environmental journalist, and this is the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. Thank you for joining us so that together we can create a better outdoor space as we recreate. Trail work is one of those things that most of us benefit from, whether or not we realize it. The smooth, single track that we ride, the well-marked hiking routes that we follow, and the trails that stay open season after season despite heavier use, harsher conditions, and less on-the-ground support from the agencies that typically take care of them. But behind every trail is a group of people showing up with tools, their precious time, and of course, a deep care for these places that we all love. That's why in episode 207 of the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, we're talking about how all of us, everyday outdoor users, can get involved in trail work and stewardship, even if we've never joined a workday before. Joining me today is Chris Rizzo, who works in operations and partner coordination at Trailfunds. Trailfunds is a new platform designed to strengthen the relationship between trail users and nonprofit organizations that support them. Through a centralized app, Trailfunds helps streamline donations, increase transparency around trail projects, and create new ways for people to connect with the organizations that care for the places that we like to recreate. Their mission is to stabilize and diversify funding for trail stewardship projects while empowering local trail crews and land managers with consistent, sustainable financial support. So thank you for joining me on the Outdoor Minimalist podcast today, Chris. I'm excited to talk about this topic. I think a lot of times we're talking a lot about things that are kind of going wrong in the world. And this topic is more of boots on the ground, things that we can actually do and get done in our communities. So I'm excited to talk about that. But to get us started, I am interested to learn about your background a little bit in terms of what got you interested in outdoor recreation, getting outside, and how it fits into your life right now.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how I got into it, I was always kind of I grew up in a suburb. I definitely wouldn't have called myself like a mountain child. But as I got older, there's just a sense of like peace of mind and kind of calmness that you get from really being out in the wilderness. That like as I got older and older, became more and more of sort of the environment I really thrived in and the place where I feel the most comfortable and at home. And that basically drove a move out west. That is kind of what brought me out here. And really, my day to day now is if I'm not, working on something or in front of my laptop, you'll find me playing in the mountains, doing an endless number of different activities, um, just trying to be outside and take it all in as much as I can.
That's awesome. Well, Denver is a great place to do that. And now you're working with Trail Funds. So I do want to learn a little bit about what inspired this platform and why it's focused on outdoor stewardship. So you can also back up a little bit and tell us exactly what it is.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of walk through it. So the initial idea for Trail Funds really came from the thought that it was not as easy to really pass along donations to trail organizations as it should be. And for me personally, uh, I found that I can support the Front Range trail routes. I know about them somewhat just because that's where I'm based. That's where I'm out during the week if I get out. But I also get in my car and I drive somewhere new every single weekend. And um, this idea that there are organizations that put in incredible work that ensure that I have like a great experience when I drive 3.5 hours to a new part of the state to go for some long trail run or to go fish somewhere new or go climbing, right? Is it's not lost on me, but it's something that I until the problem was presented to me, I hadn't completely sort of appreciated. And so the initial idea, as I said, came from just like how do you streamline donations to trailers as quickly as possible. And so what we did is we set out to build an app that really like streamlined making the donating process as easy as possible. There's all sorts of ways that things are kind of done now, but we really wanted the focus to be on showcasing the org, the work they do, and then making like giving them money as easy as it could be. And so, we built this platform out. We enabled location-based notifications. This to kind of all make up for the fact that QR codes are a mixed bag in terms of who people like to, or what I'd say land managers like to see at their trailheads or what they like to see up, and being wary of all of that, as well as the idea that you could, keep riding, receive the notifications, sort of address it later so that it's not something you have to kind of go back to at the end of your ride and open a new app. And so all of that kind of happened, and we built out this platform. And as we were building it out, we were talking to some of our early partners who were basically like, the money's great, and we'd love to be able to reach transient users. But we also really would like people to know just about the work we do. And we'd like people to be aware of sort of, oh, we built this bridge, we did this cleanup. And even just telling that message would be really important because that, naturally brings about support. And so we started to look at what we were building, and we started to think about, well, how else could we contribute here? We know that an app that just pings people for money all the time is never going to take off. How else do you get them engaged? How do you get them involved? And so that's when we started to take a look at what would a digital platform for trail stewardship really look like. And so we went about really trying to find the core pieces of how do you promote sustainable recreation? How do you break down the barriers to stewardship? How do you kind of get in front of questions people might have about how to get involved? And that's when we started pivoting towards this sort of all-in digital platform that we've kind of started to work towards building today. And so, yeah, all of this kind of comes from like feedback and what we hear, from what we believe that we can do to make it easy and engaging for people to kind of get out there. And, there's a strong belief for myself, from the team, and from, I think, most organizations, that if you can get someone out once, they're highly likely to come back. It's a very rewarding experience. You meet a ton of great people with similar interests. And it's a fantastic way to kind of start to think about, not just the impact you have, but also what goes into basically keeping these outdoor spaces open, safe, and beautiful.
Yeah, I love that natural progression that you guys have had. And I think trail communities are some of the best communities, in my opinion. They're filled with so many great people from different walks of life. And I think a lot of times we're kind of lacking in that community space in our current day and age. So having an app like Trailfunds to kind of give people direction and where to go and how to connect is so great. And so I do want to talk a little bit about getting involved in trail work. Okay, because I think most people hopefully know what trail work is. It's kind of in the name, right? But to frame the rest of our conversation, can you give some examples of types of trail work that you've seen performed most often, or people would most often be directed to from the app?
So there's really all sorts, right? And we don't want to really discriminate depending on what people want to do. If they want to do like a weekend long journey out into the backcountry, we'd be happy to support that and encourage them and point them to some really great partners that do that work. But I think one of the big misconceptions with trail work and volunteering is that you're basically giving up a full weekend or your full Saturday just to kind of go out and get involved. And that can involve an extensive hike in, um, obviously like manual labor, and then a long hike out, and it can be kind of daunting, I think, for people to kind of take that step. And the reality is that a lot of organizations have kind of addressed that and pivoted. And many groups have, after work, dig days and dig evenings, I guess I'd say, where you can just get out for a couple hours at the end of your day, and you can still make a meaningful impact, but you're not kind of, uprooting whatever your plans might be, or you're not completely, giving up, I guess, a weekend if that's not your thing, and you're still making a big difference. In terms of the work that's done, I mean, there's a lot, right? And it totally depends on kind of what's going on. A lot of attention goes and money goes to new trails and building new trails and kind of creating new places for people to play. And that's certainly what I think most people would like to work on. And I personally can't blame them. I think it's a fantastic place, and it's really cool to kind of create something new that people get to experience. Um, but the maintenance often gets kind of lost in the shuffle, I guess, and certainly from a funding perspective, that's the case. But this can be anything from like washouts and blowdowns. Um, so anything from storms, especially when you kind of hit the spring and you sort of see the impact of the winter's had on a lot of trails. It involves, going through and kind of clearing down trees, fixing berms if they have them, fixing sort of drainage pieces, removing rocks, uh, making the trail basically something that, is a safe place to recreate, right, for all users. And this can be a multi-use, it could be single use, but the whole focus being on, just trying to keep it open and keep it so that people aren't going to be getting hurt. And, um, you know, it's a fun or it's an enjoyable experience for everyone, because that's what's going to get people coming outside more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say most of the trail work that I've participated in are more of the shorter periods of time. Like it's just your Saturday morning or it's a Thursday evening. It's just a couple hours of time. And it's more of like that maintenance aspect. But it's great that there's so many different options to fit people's schedules and lifestyles. And something that I mentioned already is the community aspect, which is my favorite aspect. And from your perspective, how do you see trail work kind of fitting into local communities and becoming an important pillar of the community, especially for communities that are supported by outdoor recreation economies?
Yeah. I mean, I think you really kind of hit the nail on the head at the end of that, because I think what we're seeing more and more of, especially recently, is just sort of the overall economic impact that having like good trail networks can have to mostly rural communities. And it's something that you'll, if you look around at some of like the best cases, you can certainly see. Um, and Colorado has a number of these. If you look at like Crested Buttes mountain biking community and Grand Junction's sort of mountain bike trails, they bring in lots of people from all over the place to kind of come and experience this. And those people often stay and buy food, buy gear, buy anything they might need for this. And it obviously boosts the local economy. And there's obviously like very grandiose examples of this when I think a lot of people will point to Bentonville and what they've kind of done and recreated. And it was a very rural community that's now known as like a very large hub for mountain biking. And they try and sort of create this for their local community. And it's proven to work. People love, as I said, riding new trails. They love experiencing new things. And um, when the community comes together and kind of, I guess, rallies around projects like this, it can have an enormous impact. But I also think like it's important to note how crucial community even is to getting this done. It's not like you can just go out with a shovel and just start digging, right? Or just start clearing trail and stuff like that. You need to get all sorts of permissions from land managers. You need to get approvals from local government. You need to basically outline how this is going to be a safe and sustainable place for people to recreate. You need to build trailheads. You need to build parking. You need to think about bathrooms, all sorts of these things, which are really important. And so ultimately, a community is required to come together on these projects to begin with. But as a result, the community can highly benefit from sort of the end result and what you can kind of build and create. And I think right now we're seeing a lot more people sort of realize that investing in outdoor recreation is a great way to sort of boost their local economy and bring more attention to some of these rural areas.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you said, there are a lot of steps involved into getting to the place where you can actually maintain a trail or like break a new trail, all those things. Some random Joe can't just go out and I mean, I guess they could, but they should not just go
Please
out
don't.
and
Yes.
and just do this on their own. Like there is a little bit of bureaucracy involved. And so, if someone has never done any trail work before, but they're interested in it as a way to get more involved and to kind of give back to their community, what do you think is the first step that they should be taking?
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of identify what the trail organization in your area is. Some do a much better job of sort of advertising themselves than others, but I would definitely look to your local community. I mean, there's plenty of um, ways to sort of identify that. A lot of them get to go up on trail signs and usage signs, and they'll certainly be. You can run into them too, just out there doing work. But basically identify, I think, the local stewardship organization that maybe maintains the trail that you frequent the most. See what they have on their calendar. They're always excited to just kind of get the word out, but also to get more volunteers and sign up for a day. It doesn't even have to be a dig day. A lot of them have, community events, happy hours, educational things. They contribute a lot more than I think people think. There's a huge barrier to entry in terms of a lot of outdoor recreation when you think about a cost, a knowledge, a skill set, and education piece. And a lot of these organizations step well beyond just trail work, and they do a lot to kind of make the outdoors more accessible and get more people out and engaged. And so I think as soon as you identify them, kind of see what they're about, and just show up and start talking to people. Everyone I've certainly that I've ever met at these is very friendly, very excited to see new faces, and really happy to get someone else engaged and sort of help them see what goes into um, creating awesome experiences outside.
So, beyond trail maintenance, are there other forms of stewardship that people can get involved in through your platform or even through these organizations and beyond?
Yeah, and I would say Trailfunds. I would candidly, I don't think we do the greatest job of capturing non-trail based work at the moment, although it's very much on our radar. It's something we've always wanted to. It's just sort of the way we built. We connected trails and trailheads to users because that's the asset that drives most people in. But a lot of these organizations do a lot of other work. Invasive species removal is enormous. Um, Native plant protection is really big. Fire restoration, fire prevention. There are some really interesting articles and I think maybe even a film as well about what sort of building trails and trail networks can do for fire prevention. And a lot of orgs, I said, do more than just the trail maintenance piece, right? These are other issues that basically threaten your ability to recreate your ability their you know the native species in the area. And so a lot of other things go into it that I think people may not totally realize are involved in sort of you know trying to stabilize our habitat.
And beyond volunteering time, because I mean, there are some physical barriers as well, time barriers, like you mentioned, if people do want to get out on the trails. So, beyond volunteering in that way, are there other ways that people can give back?
Yeah, I mean, money is always always a big piece, right? And we definitely support like micro donations. and subscriptions and recurring donations. They're done super easily. They're really easy to manage. And for someone who maybe works full time, who wants to spend all of their free time playing, and I get it. That's a great way to really contribute. You know, these organizations go through tools really quickly. They need insurance. They need, a lot of them can be volunteer based, but that doesn't mean the costs are zero. And so there's a lot that they need to kind of keep their work up, and that's where your obviously dollars can make a big difference. Also, I think there's an element of being well educated and being well prepared, right? At the very least, um, you don't want to be responsible for putting more strain on these organizations or just the outdoors in general. Um, being aware of maybe what you're getting yourself into. Who I think ourselves in Colorado and certainly some of our neighboring states, you can hear a lot about how strained search and rescue particularly are. And you never want to put yourself in a situation where hopefully you have to call on them for just a lack of preparation or a lack of awareness. Obviously, accidents happen, and that's what they're there for. And they're, an incredible resource that we have um, to provide that sort of assurance and protection in the backcountry. But the goal is not that they're there because you forgot your jacket and decided to climb a 14er in September, right? Like if you put yourself in that situation, it puts a lot of strain on both the resources and it diverts them from other people who might um, really need to rely on them. And so I think being aware, obviously, when you talk about other things like leave no trace principles are really important. Being fire aware, um, being knowledgeable about the land that you're on is really important as well. There's different rules for different types of land, wilderness areas, national parks, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service, that all have sort of different rules about, what's allowed, what's not allowed, but also, um, how to go about recreating there. And um, obviously, being aware of public versus private is also a huge aspect of um, this whole conversation because in the places where the trail user does get access to private land, it's really important to be very aware, be very conscious, listen to the rules when the landowners come up. This has been a huge conversation, obviously, in Colorado, as a couple of the 14ers sit on private land, and it's been a back and forth as access kind of comes and goes. But it's hugely important that you're not putting it at risk of the general population losing access. And so you want to always follow sort of rules and um, be aware of where you are and how you're recreating and what your impact is. And so I think all of that's really important as well. And just in terms of like, if you don't have the time and if you don't have the money, at least try and not put a lot of strain on our natural resources.
Yeah, I think that awareness piece is so important. So I'm so glad that you brought it up. And I mean, if we look back kind of at your experience with trail work and your involvement in stewardship, has it changed the way that you interact outdoors or like the way that you experience the outdoors when you do get out on the trail? Or how has it kind of impacted your perception there?
I mean, it's once I think it was like a very immediate change, right? Once you participate in trail work and you realize how backbreaking the work is, you have a huge appreciation for any sort of new trail you see or any sort of big fix that you see. And I think, like a really interesting piece of this is just like even how quickly some work gets done. I think I was like last summer, I was thinking about doing this hike and was monitoring like a Facebook group and 14ers.com and whatever, and someone was like, oh, the approach to whatever is full of blowdowns. There's like normally an hour and a half long hike just took like 6 hours, and like a week later someone was like, everything's been cleared, the trail's good to go, we're ready to move. And or like it was a great day out. And like that's a pretty incredible turnaround, that someone got a crew up there and kind of cleared it all out. And a lot of what we're sort of hoping to capture with Trailfunds, and a huge piece of functionality that we're kind of rolling out now is this sort of project visibility tool. And the whole point of it being that we can kind of showcase, all these things that these organizations do. And it's not just stewardship organizations as well. It can be the Forest Service. It can be the Bureau of Land Management, right? They do maintenance as well. Um, but it can just be to sort of respond to exactly how much goes into keeping these places safe and enjoyable. And certainly once you get out and you know, swing some tools, you're going to have a much greater appreciation for just how much work it is to kind of clear, down trees, to build proper drainages, to, move rocks. Like it's truly backbreaking work, but it's incredibly rewarding work as well.
Yeah, so how can listeners learn more about trail funds then and hopefully get involved in their local trail community?
Yeah, from a Trail Funds perspective, we have a website, trailfunds.org. We have an application on Android and iOS that can be downloaded, that where you'll see, a map with some local stewardship organizations if they've joined in your area. I would say we're definitely our biggest presence is definitely in Colorado. That just happens to be where myself and the founder are based, and where we sort of expanded out. But we're always looking for new partners, and we are fully supportive of organizations across the United States. So if you have any interest in joining, please reach out. Info@trailfunds.org, or just by going to our website, and someone will always help you sort of get onboarded and understand what our mission is and how we work with our partners. From a user perspective, yeah, download Trailfunds, look at some organizations, look at the work they do, give some money if you want, go to the website, sign up for events. Just think about going to like a happy hour even, or a group ride, or a group run. There's more and more organizations, I think, recently that have come up that are a lot more specifically catered to certain types of users, which I think is fantastic. I mean, you climbing coalitions now, you have obviously mountain biking organizations. I've seen a couple trail runner stewardship groups, and this is fantastic. If those are the activities that you're into, those people are going to be great at sort of helping you understand how you can protect, the trails you love to recreate on, or, get access to, or, replace bolts on, whatever it might be. And you'll meet a bunch of great people along the way. Trail Funds aims to be a resource to kind of bridge that connection. But you can also take a look at your local, community board or paper or something, or, even your climbing gym or your bike shop. They all know about these organizations that can point you in the right direction. Trail Funds aims to be a conduit for it, but mostly we just want to see more people getting out, giving back, and kind of recreating sustainably. And so the way that you go about that is entirely up to you, and we just want to see you out there on the trails and having a good time.
Thanks for listening. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book, on YouTube, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at theoutdoorminimalist.com. For even more updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.